Hi, this is Robert Bolaños. In this video, I'm going to try to model, or actually I have modeled a Royer power supply, and in both TOPSPICE and LTSPICE. And I am interested to seeing which simulator is faster. And then I'm going to do a FRA analysis to see how they compare in terms of accuracy and in speed as well. From preliminary testing that I've done, it seems that TOPSPICE is faster than LTSPICE. Now, mind you, LT is regarded to be one of the fastest simulators, but in this particular instance, it's a sample one, basically this simulation. I would have to do more simulation using other topologies, but on this topology, TOPSPICE seems to be faster. Now, I've used the same models that I've used on TOPSPICE. I've posted the models on LTSPICE, and I'm using the models for the diodes, the transistors. Here are the model, and then the op amp, I'm using the UA741 model. So they're basically identical. Now, one of the first uh, simulation that I'm going to do is a transient response, and I'm going to try and make them equally. So I'm going to simulate up to 100 milliseconds, and I'm going to leave this time step off. So I'll do the first simulation or comparison with the maximum time step left blank. So I'll do the same thing over here. It says, in this case, I don't think LT has a time step. It only has a stop time. And the step ceiling, I'll go ahead and leave it blank, just like in LTSPICE. So they're going to simulate, and I'm going to plot the output. In this case, it would be HV out, and on the TOPSPICE, HV out would be this right there, and I have it right there, defined auto plot. So I'll go ahead and start the simulation. Okay, bring that here, and I'll start the LTSPICE first. So I'll press run and run. Okay, so they're both running, and on TOPSPICE it plots as it simulates. I don't know whether that slows it down or not, but I'm going to go ahead and plot that. So it kind of gives you a reference. So this is a 24, here is 28 milliseconds. So you can see relative to each other how fast they are. So TOPSPICE is 43, just came up to 40. So you can see that TOPSPICE seems to be ahead of LTSPICE. Okay. And I believe it might be faster because now it's a 64-bit environment, so that definitely did speed up TOPSPICE. And you'll see once we do an FRA that the speed is even faster. Okay. So this is at 87. This barely hit 80. So it's quickly coming to completion. There you go. now here's the result. So it's taking a couple of seconds. And it already plotted. Okay. So you can tell that the speed, very similar waveforms. See, it's got the little slope, So let's try a different scenario. Let's do, so basically if you don't define the maximum time step, then it varies the time step. So let's go ahead and put a little bit of limitation. Let's say that it limits the time steps to 200, and we'll do the same thing in TOPSPICE. So we'll define it here. And mind you, I will start and give it a little bit of a head start. Let's see how this works. LTSPICE seems to be ahead because it started just a little bit ahead. 20, 21, I think it TOPSPICE, it looks like it caught up, or they're pretty close to each other. 30, okay, TOPSPICE is ahead. I'll just let it 39, barely reached 40. So definitely TOPSPICE is ahead. 50, it hit 50 already. Okay, it's at, I'll count down to 60. 60. So again, even when you do the step ceiling or maximum, TOPSPICE seems to be faster than LTSPICE. Okay, so it's almost 82% done. Still ahead. And it looks like TOPSPICE is going to win the simulation. And there it is. And it plots, bang, ready. And then a couple of seconds later, there, it stopped. It's doing some more measurements, and it's done. Okay, so definitely in this particular circuit, there may be some other circuits where LT is faster, but in this instance, TOPSPICE seems to have the upper hand. So the other thing that I want to do is FRA. So I'm going to go ahead and set both of them, and they'll take a little bit of time. Okay, so now I'm ready to perform a FRA on both LTSPICE and TOPSPICE. Now, on this particular power supply, since it's a very low power, it takes time for it to settle down. So in the previous, you saw that the voltage went down, and then it was decreasing. So during that time, that scale down appears right here. And if you do a FTT with the voltage or the DC voltage changing, it affects the FTT. So one little shortcut or tip is you can connect a voltage control voltage source, put a cap in a resistor, and the cap eliminates that slope or that DC. So basically you end up just with the AC here. So by doing that, I'm able to I'm able to do a FTT and not have the DC voltage affected. So, and typically when you have the sinusoidal wave, you would put, or the input stimulus, you would put the injection points. In this case, according to this script here, it's node A and B, and here is node A and B. Typically you would not have this. You would move this and you put it right here, and then the A you would put it right here and you would simulate it. But because of the little DC that is still there, I'm doing this little trick. Okay, and it actually works pretty good. And I did the same thing over here. I put the voltage control little cap and resistor. So instead of measuring across here, which has the DC offset, I'm removing the DC, and it makes for a much better FTT. Okay, so here are the parameters. The parameter TO is the steady state time, and then you have the transient, and I have here T on, and T on is defined as the steady state plus 5 divided by the frequency. So basically this 5 represents that it's going to inject a signal with 5 cycles. Okay, and when you divide it by the frequency, it gives you the T on. So that's the total T on that defines it, and it's going to step from 100 hertz to 10 kilohertz at 5 points per decade. So TOPSPICE is also, instead of having these scripts, it actually has a nice menu. And here it has the frequency response setup. I'm going to go ahead and enable it. And again, here is 100 to 10K, same as here, as in LTSPICE. 5 points per decade. Steady state is 5 milliseconds, just like it's defined here. And in this case, maximum runtime, I'm going to set this. Typically the rule of thumb that I've been using is I add 10 milliseconds to whatever the steady state time is. So I got 15 milliseconds. The period would be 5 cycles. This is, if you leave it blank, it will give you 5 cycles, just like here. This is 5 cycles. And then the time step singing, I'm going to leave it at 200 nano. And I'm going to step singing here to 200 nano. And just to be even, I'm going to go ahead. Let's see. We'll set this at 200 nano. That way there'll be the resolution will be, or the fidelity will be good. So I think I'm ready. I'll press run. Okay, so right here on the lower left, you can see that it's running the first frequency, and here is 100 hertz. It's almost done, and I'll go ahead and click here so you can see the waveform, and it's already, TOPSPICE has already scrolled to the second frequency. This LT is still in the first frequency. Okay, TOPSPICE scroll to the third frequency. Okay, it'll scroll to the next frequency, and it's just much faster when it comes to the FRA algorithm. LTSPICE is still stuck in the first. I already completed the first. Now it's in the second. Okay, TOPSPICE already finished. Now I can go to Format. I can recall. These are the X and Y axis that I like. So we'll go ahead and wait. For LTSPICE to finish its simulation. Now, mind you, the reason that I'm doing this, I wanted to find out is uh, there is some work that has been pioneered by Dr. Ray Ridley uh, with using LTSPICE. The only complaint, or not complaint, but observation that I see is that on the models that he's shown, they're very simple models, and I wanted to see how it would work with a more complicated or a more detailed model, and I wanted to see how much time it would take. And I wanted to get a model, but this is the closest model that I could get that was reproducible in both LTSPICE and TOPSPICE. Now, if we look, it's still on the 7th cycle. It's still running. It's almost in completion. It's at the 8th, 9th. And it should be almost done. And it's processing, and there, it's done. Okay, so now you have this. So now you can do view, you go SPICE error log, step data, and then you add the trace gain. Okay, so now in addition to going through all of this, now you have to set up the y-axis in both the phase. It does not, that I know of, have a recall feature. So let's go to 180. That way it'll look the same as the TOPSPICE. And there you go. So it looks pretty good. They look very similar. However, this was done in a fraction of the time that LT did. Okay, and now this is using the time step. So you might argue, well, you're limiting the time step. So let's go ahead and take it off. And theoretically, if I'm not mistaken, if you take this maximum time step, then it should go at its fastest. In other words, it can vary the time step up or down. So theoretically, it should make this simulation a lot faster. I'll go ahead and leave this with the time step undefined, and I'll go ahead and leave this. As a matter of fact, let's make it even more slower or more detailed. Let's say I'm going to reduce this to 100 nanoseconds. Okay, so that means that this is going to be doing a more detailed or finer resolution. So let's see which one runs faster. So we'll run. So this has no time step control. Again, you see TOPSPICE. It's already completed its first. It's up to the second. LT is still playing along. it's incredible the difference in the simulation. Now this is an old algorithm that was written by Mike Engelberg, I believe, is the author. So that's what I copied. Dr. Ridley might have a script that makes it a lot faster. I don't have access to his model, but the way he has the FRA may be faster. That's why I'm interested in a more detailed, a full schematic. How fast would the FRA work? Here again, even with the time constraint of having the time step limited to 100, is still much faster. I can go to Format, Recall, and again, I have to wait for LTSPICE to continue, or continue simulation until it finishes. It's still in the fourth. Okay, let's see how fast this took. I think it took 65 seconds. Let's see, view. 77 seconds, okay. And it went 77 seconds because I changed the time step to 100. If I change it back to 200, it'll be 65 seconds. So again, much faster. LTSPICE is still at the 7th cycle. And again, this is just a sample size of one topology. I'd like to do maybe a forward converter and see how well the FRA works on both TOPSPICE and LTSPICE, and compare them. But as far as having a full schematic or detail, it definitely looks like TOPSPICE is much faster. It's got a better algorithm, at least compared to the original script. And like I said, maybe it's the new algorithm or setup that Dr. Ridley has is faster, but until I get a model, I believe LT or TOPSPICE is much faster at this time. Now I do believe that there is a new version. It's a beta, and they have I believe a FRA icon, and when you click on the FRA icon, it's got a menu that you can fill in. I've compared it to that as well, and TOPSPICE is still faster. Okay, so click on that, and again I gotta go through this. I gotta go to 60, 20, 60, and then I gotta do this again. And if there's a way of making this default, let me know. I'm not a user of LTSPICE. I'll use it every once in a while. And here you go. It looks good. They basically have almost the same shape, so it looks good. Now I did want to show right here. Oh, let's see. Let me go ahead and just run this again just to show. This is the waveform, and if you notice, there's no DC, but if I click here at this node, this is the one that has the DC voltage. So if I click here, see, that's DC voltage. So if I put the A back here where it's supposed to be, the B here and the A here, then I'm going to get this type of waveform. So basically, it's a slope or descending or decreasing DC voltage. And if you have a waveform and you try to do FTT with this type of waveform, then your FRA is not going to turn out well. So instead, you use this little trick where you eliminate the DC and you get a much better FRA results. So anyway, those are the little tips on in case you do have that situation where the injection point, if you have an injection point that has either an increasing voltage or a decreasing voltage, then you can DC couple it and get a much better FRA. Anyway, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and share. Thank you for watching.